You got barbecue back there, and you didn't invite me. Hurt my feelings.
Welcome back to this week's episode of Trending Fantasy. I'm John Bauer. Find me on X at the Bauer Club. And then we have Mitch Sorensen at Dino MC. Tonight, we want to spend a little bit of time, and this was based on something I had seen. Again, each and every week, I try to pull something that is trending, air quotes, being discussed, whether it's on X, Reddit, league chats, the DD Fantasy Football Discord. And this is something that I think comes into play for a lot of folks, whether it's a startup, whether it's an existing league, because we get a ton of questions that are kind of related to this, but the better wide receiver value on one team. So the same team, different prices, which wide receivers are worth it in 2025 and beyond. And the first thing, Mitch, is there ever a point for you, and best ball a little bit different, so this is all going to be a lineup discussion, but is there any point for you that like you don't care if you have players from the same team, especially wide receivers?
Yeah, I flat out don't care. Usually if I do though, I will try to pick up the quarterback as well, because you know how much I do like stacking. So if I have two of the wide receivers that I would like to do well in my lineup, there's absolutely no reason why I shouldn't have the quarterback in there as well. But yeah, having two of the wide receivers on my teams, that doesn't stop me from making a trade ever.
And is that just because, like, especially when you're stacking them, if you are able to acquire the quarterback too, like you're getting those spike weeks? Like for me, I don't really care, but it's not really from that lens. It's the fact that situations change so much. And things change so quickly, whether it's injury, whether it's a trade, whether it's free agency. It's not like these players are necessarily stuck with each other forever, right? So that's one of the things that I look at here. And do you remember, I always do this, get my time machine, like the big conversation, it was when they were both in Carolina. It was, who do you prefer at cost, Curtis Samuel or DJ Moore?
I 100% remember this.
That feels like just an eternity ago. And in Dynasty Fantasy Football, it might as well have been. But that's kind of the way we're looking at this tonight. So we're going to go through three situations, three wide receiver rooms. But then, and there's no context required for this one, I just need an answer. But we are going to go through 7 situations, 7 wide receiver rooms, and you're just giving me a rapid fire answer. All right. So starting off, we're sticking in the state of Pennsylvania, not too far from me, but in Philadelphia, AJ Brown, he's wide receiver 13 on Fantasy Calc. And all of these, any of these price points that I'm referencing, just pulled from Fantasy Calc for high level discussion purposes. But wide receiver 13, valued right around the 102, versus DeVonta Smith at wide receiver 19, valued right around the 105.
Yeah, for me, I don't do this. I hope everyone knows that I don't take the cop-outs with these wide receivers. But I think with the Eagles, I'm okay having either of them. I'm okay having both of them. And the reason is because, A.J. Brown had a 32% target share and DeVonta Smith had 27%. They only throw to 3 people. They have Saquon Barkley on their team, and they gave him 11% of the targets. I mean, that's just how concentrated this is. We know where all of the volume is going, and if either of them miss, then we know where it's going even more, because they're still just going to throw to the same guys. And so for me, I am more than happy. This is like one of those stacking situations I'm talking about. I'm like, you're telling me I get Hurts and DeVonta Smith, or Hurts and AJ Brown. And a big thing to remember about this team is, it's from everything we kind of read, it sounds it's going to be more and more likely that the NFL bans the tush push one way or the other. And yes, that does help Saquon Barkley. AJ Brown on a quick screen on the 2-yard line is an easy, if you have both of them, it could be 12 points as far as getting AJ Brown 6 points for the touchdown, another 6 for Hurts, or however your scoring goes. I mean, there is no reason not to buy into these guys, in my opinion.
Yeah, we have AJ Brown, 28 years old, 13 games last year, 97 targets, 67 receptions, over 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns. Trinity score of 8.61. Again, we always reference the Trinity score.
Yes.
We talk about the War Machine, my cross-positional tiers, all part of the ddfantasyfootball.com website and community. Use code THEORY. Click the link below. Get 50% off your first month. And then you get the Discord access as well with its respective tier. So the 8.61 Trinity score, elite usage. DeVonta Smith, 6.97 Trinity score. It's still between mid and low end wide receiver one usage.
Yep.
It's not elite, but it's still fantastic. So wide receiver 19, from a value perspective, I think that's right on board there. But also 13 games played. He averaged 15.3 points per game. AJ Brown at 16.7. So gun to head, if you have DeVonta Smith in 102 in a 12-team super flex league, let's say 1.5 PPR for tight ends. Okay. You have DeVonta Smith in 102. I offer you AJ Brown in 105.
DeVonta Smith in 102.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
I mean, if they were the same age, I would probably go AJ Brown because I think AJ Brown is the more talented wide receiver. But you are getting a 2-year age discount there, and you're getting the higher draft pick. So that's the way I'd go with it.
Let us know in the comments as we go through these 3 scenarios, and then even the rapid fire at the end, who you would take at their respective price. You could also say both, or you could say neither. If you want to give the cop-out answer and you want to hedge a little bit, I always say that I bring my clippers with me because I'm hedging all the time. But yeah, so okay, DeVonta Smith at that wide receiver 19 price, slightly over AJ Brown, but kind of that draft pick difference. I think that's something to take into account there. In Kansas City, Rashee Rice, wide receiver 17, right around the 104 in Superflex formats, or Xavier Worthy, wide receiver 24 at the 107. And you look at Rashee Rice, 6.74 Trinity score, just above low end wide receiver 1, cut short in 2024, only 4 games, but 16.2 points per game. It sounds like he might miss any legal repercussions here in 2025, at least. What does that look like beyond? Not entirely sure. But then you look at Xavier Worthy, 22 years old, 4.74 Trinity, right between wide receiver 3 and wide receiver 4 usage. He was at 11 points per game in 2024. How do you view this one?
Yeah, so the funny thing is, for whatever reason today in the DD Fantasy Discord, please join up. If you get in the Discord, we're in there answering trades and nonstop. But I answered 4 or 5 trades today just about Rashee Rice. I mean, didn't answer them. I offered my opinions, probably the better way to say it. Rice has the possibility of being a wide receiver 1, and actually has a pretty decent possibility of minimum being a wide receiver 2. I mean, he's going to be in that range for sure, a top 24 wide receiver in the league. Xavier Worthy, I mean, there's games he could probably be a wide receiver 1, but his floor is pretty low. And I was a huge Xavier Worthy guy coming out, and I still like him on that offense. I mean, it took Mahomes most of the season to be able to get him on deep balls. If you would have hit Worthy on all the deep balls that he was open, I mean, Worthy would have had an outstanding year. But with Rashee Rice coming back, being healthy, and Travis Kelce just being that much older, not being able to be the guy that he used to be, I think we could easily see Rashee Rice getting 10 to 12 targets every single game. And high volume targets, more so where Worthy could probably get 7 or 8 still, but he's only going to catch 50 to 55% of those. And so I know Rashee Rice is worth more, but I'm more than happy to pay that price over a guy like Worthy, just because that high end Rashee Rice can put up like a Puka Nacua type season this year, and no one would blink an eye. And everyone would be like, well, it's kind of the off the field stuff why we didn't like him. I'm like, Yeah, but at the same time, if he's going to be on the field with the best quarterback in football, I'm more than willing to buy into him.
Doesn't it feel a little bit like the Amon-Ra St. Brown to the
Yeah.
Jameson Williams?
Yeah.
And then the second best quarterback in football, who is Jared Goff, of
It was
course.
really close, or 20th, something like that. Till he wins a Super Bowl, I'll keep hating on him.
All right, last one here. We're going with a trio in San Francisco. Brandon Aiyuk, wide receiver 34 on Fantasy Calc, right around the 112. Ricky Pearsall, wide receiver 39, also right around the 112. So a couple wide receivers clustered together. And then Jauan Jennings, wide receiver 50 at the 206. You look at their respective Trinity scores last year. Aiyuk at 6.02, Pearsall 2.96, but asterisk because the dude came back from getting shot.
Yeah, he was shot, so give him a little bit of slack there.
So the Trinity score, I think, needs to get an artificial boost there. And then Jauan Jennings, right at 6.68. Aiyuk 8.9 points per game, Pearsall 8.5. But that number, we saw a huge uptick at the tail end of the season. And then Jennings at 14 points per game. I just recently talked about Jauan Jennings on Monday's episode of Dynasty Theory. Certainly somebody that I'm interested at his current price. But out of all three at their current prices, who is your favorite value?
I mean, kind of sounds like Aiyuk might be back week 1, but he's going to be completely out of OTAs. And you're telling me a guy who's been as injured as he is going to be out of OTAs, any offseason training, and might be back for week 1. I mean, I'm just not going to buy into that. Other people can take that risk. But I do think that this team is such a great team to buy into, because if you're right, I think it's really going to help your dynasty value. So for me, it goes to Pearsall, who, like we said, he got shot. He's a little bit of an older prospect, but like his last 2 games, he averaged 100 yards and 7 receptions. And so he came on at the end of the season, and you're like, all right, that's great. Jennings was good all year, though. Jennings was just that vet who went out. He averaged like 5 catches and 65 yards a game. I think he could easily do better than that with just another year in the offense. I want to say Pearsall, because if he hits, his ceiling is so much higher dynasty value wise. Like if Jennings hits, his value is going up to like, hey, he's worth a mid-second now, and that's kind of what it is. Or maybe he gets up to like, oh, hey, he's worth a 203 instead of the 206 now.
But we always talk about this. It's probably ultimately going to be like 206 plus something.
Exactly, yeah. But if Pearsall hits, all of a sudden, hey, he's worth the 108, the 109 in 2026, which is huge. I just can't. If I'm choosing today, I'm going Jennings with a close Pearsall and a very distant Aiyuk.
I can get on board with that. Yeah, I can get on board with that one. Not to say I wasn't on board with the other ones
That's
as
fair.
well.
That's
fair. But especially there. Okay. Rapid fire. No additional context required. I'm going to give you the wide receiver, their fantasy calc ranking at the wide receiver position, the corresponding rookie pick in 2025, and their Trinity score. And again, for reference, 6.5 is low end wide receiver 1 usage. 8-ish is elite.
Yeah, it's right around 8.
And then I think 7.5 is like high end wide receiver 1. So, but again, for more in-depth looks at that, head over to ddfantasyfootball.com. Use code THEORY. Episode description below. You can find the link. All right, Mitch. DK Metcalf, wide receiver 30, 109. Trinity score 687 last year. Or George Pickens, wide receiver 33, valued at the 112. Trinity score 7.7.
Give me DK Metcalf.
Going over Chicago, Rome Odunze, wide receiver 18 on Fantasy Calc, right at the 104. Trinity score 575. DJ Moore, wide receiver 20, valued at the 106. Trinity score 6.15.
Rome Odunze.
Chris Olave, wide receiver 23, 107, Trinity score 537. Or Rashid Shaheed, wide receiver 60, 211, Trinity score 6.22.
I respect you for putting this one in. I'm still going to go Chris Olave, though. I am. I can't
Okay.
quite pick Shaheed over him.
I was looking at teams that had multiple guys in the top 60.
Yeah.
And
No, that's fair.
it was just one I wanted to throw in a little curveball just to make sure everyone's paying attention. Terry McLaurin, wide receiver 29, valued at the 108, Trinity score of 683. Debo Samuel, wide receiver 47, valued at the 205, Trinity score 476 last year in San Francisco.
Terry McLaurin by at least a late first.
Okay. Mike Evans, wide receiver 37, valued at the 112, Trinity score 7.32. Chris Godwin, wide receiver 35, valued at the 112, Trinity score 7.77. Jalen McMillan, kind of the forgotten guy now because Chris Godwin is still there. Wide receiver 52, 207, Trinity score 3.94, which kind of makes sense because when you look at the Trinity score equation, touchdowns is not something that gets lumped in there. So, yes, he had the high touchdown rate, boosting his points per game, but that's not going to be reflected in that Trinity score because it is air yard share, yards after catch per reception, and target share.
Chris Godwin, he had the highest Trinity score of anyone that we've talked about at 7.77. There's no reason not to buy into him. He was killing it with Mike Evans on the field early in the season before he got injured. And so, yeah, I can't move off Chris Godwin for any of those other guys.
In Buffalo, getting a little grosser here, Khalil Shakir, wide receiver 44, valued at the 203, Trinity score 5.77, or Keon Coleman at wide receiver 46, valued at the 204, Trinity score 5.1.
That's funny. We talked about Coleman just a little bit on Theory earlier this week, but it's Khalil Shakir by a lot for me.
Yeah, especially with pretty much identical price tags. I agree there. And then Michael Pittman, wide receiver 48 at the 205, Trinity score 6.64, or Josh Downs, wide receiver 43, valued at the 203, Trinity score 6.36.
Yeah, Josh Downs clears this for me.
All right. So, yeah, a little more in-depth on the first three scenarios. Then wanted to throw some rapid fire with no additional context, even though, Mitch, you gave some additional context for Chris Godwin, but I'll let it slide.
Just a little bit. You know, there's some reasonings behind it.
But I do love Chris Godwin, so I let it slide there. But these are situations and these are problems that dynasty managers, they look at their rosters. Hey, should I really be rostering both of these wide receivers? Or if I do have both, should I be looking to move one? So I think a conversation like this, it can be extremely helpful because we're talking about the receivers in their respective wide receiver rooms and discussing the ones that we prefer at their current value. And again, maybe there's a situation, and for Mitch, maybe many situations where we are going to be okay rostering both wide receivers and don't really care as long as they're guys that we can buy into at their current value, a la A.J. Brown and DeVonta Smith. Again, thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Trending Fantasy. Make sure you hit the like button on the video below and make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel and check out ddfantasyfootball.com. Use code Theory. Click the link in the episode description below. Got the Trinity tool that we discussed a ton tonight. Got the War Machine, my cross-positional tiers. A lot of good stuff. So come check it out and then get in the Dynasty, the DD Fantasy Football Discord. I was at Dynasty Theory.
Yeah, I know. I saw you there.
Still runs through me here. But the DD Fantasy Football Discord community. For Mitch Sorensen, I'm John Bauer. We'll catch everybody next week.